Hey everyone, we're here with Ryan from a flock named Murder, Canadian based, no genre fucking boundary band. Lots of like black metal elements, which is fucking fantastic. The latest album, Incendiary Sanctum, is coming out May 2nd on Hypaethral Records. Did I say that right? I always fucking say it wrong.
You're pretty close. I say it as like Hypaethral Records. So yeah, you're close.
I'm somewhere in the realm. Sorry, Hypaethral, whatever it is. I know we've
He's a
had
pretty
that
chill dude.
discussion.
I'm sure he'll be okay.
Yeah, for sure. He and I actually like talked a little bit online about it. I was like, I always say it wrong. He's like, that's fine. Thanks. So Ryan, first, thank you very much for your time this morning. I know how important time is for all of us and how rare of a commodity it is. So I greatly, greatly appreciate that.
Well, thanks for having me here. I mean, I Sunday and Mondays are actually my weekends, so this actually works out perfect for me. So yeah, thanks for having me here, man.
Hell yeah, rock and roll. I don't even know what a weekend is anymore. Um,
Who
it's
does?
all go all the time. Yeah, right. So,
Yeah.
I was reading about the band. It looks like you and your brother Cam started this in 2009. So you guys are 16 years into it. Of course, with a flock named Murder came in what with 2018 is when you changed the name.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, like we started writing music together in like 2009. We were both still in high school at the time. And it kind of just the band went through various incarnations, right? So I think it's the type of thing, if you ask both of us, we'll have different opinions on like, when the official start of the band was, because I mean, to me, the band never really broke up. It just sort of evolved in different ways. And I think it did for Cam as well, but wouldn't I know what okay, so one thing we wouldn't feel comfortable with is if it was like, okay, 2029 comes around and it's the 20th anniversary of the band. No, I mean that seems a little bit ridiculous, right? I mean, we're still kind of just getting started in a way, at least with Flock. But yeah, we changed the name in 2018. We went under the name Sovereign for many years afterward, many years before that. It was inspired by the Neurosis EP Sovereign, which is a fantastic EP if anyone hasn't heard that yet. But, we were getting a little bit tired of the name, and also there's a million fucking bands called Sovereign, and I think a few of them are already starting to catch steam. So it's like we're gonna run into a freaking name dispute at some point. We don't want there to be two Sovereigns like there is two Shinings, for instance. So, we just figured let's just deal with it. In fact, funny story about this actually. There was a gig that we played in Toronto. I think it was 2017 maybe. And someone came to that show thinking that we were a different Sovereign from Arizona. And they were told us, they're like, yeah, I thought you were a different Sovereign. I like you guys anyway. So I'm like, okay, well, at least they like us anyways. But yeah, we need to change our name. We're already getting confused for a different band. So
That's cool. There, it's like I think it's so hard anymore to find like a good solid name that the band likes that isn't fucking taken anymore. You
yeah.
know?
Yeah, I
There's
mean,
there's
oh,
there's another band out of Indiana. They changed their name to Veilcast, but initially they were called Conjurer, but there was another Conjurer going that was like gaining steam.
yeah, yeah. I think those one word names in particular, it's tough to find the right one just because everyone can think of a word, right? Well, at least,
Yeah.
well, most people can. So yeah, it is rather tough. I'm actually going through the process of like I've also been writing music for a solo project that I've got. Still has no name, and I'm still trying to think of a name for it. I'm sure I'll think of one at some point, but yeah, those one word names can be tricky.
Yeah, that is the fucking truth. That's so you write a lot of fucking music. How aside from a Flocked in the solo project, what other like shit do you have going on? Because I know it's not just those two.
Well, for me, it's just those two actually, but I know Cam has a few different projects. Flock I think is his main band, but he has another album that's also going to be coming out through Hypaethral Records sometime this year. This band called Witherer, and that's sort of like a black death doom hybrid. It's a lot more murky and ominous and eerie than Flock is, right? So even though we have elements of black metal, death metal, and doom as well, it's not in the really in that melodic sense. It's much more eerie. I've kind of described it as like a weird hybrid between Leviathan and the ruins of Beverast. It's really just despicably evil sounding shit. But
Right on.
anyways, yeah, so that's a project that Cam has. There's some other projects that he's had on the go as well that we're going to hear about in time. So he's been a busy bee of a drummer over the last few years, and it's the type of thing where a lot of things he's got on the go, but no one's hearing about it yet because it's all in the stage of coming out. But we'll hear about it soon. I mean, two of those projects are coming out already, so
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and for drummers, I mean, I'm sure it's very similar where you guys are to where I am. There's like we have like five drummers in 70 different bands,
oh
everyone's
God, yeah.
like, we fucking need you. You got to play drums. Like, oh, fuck, not another one.
Yeah, yeah, it's very much like that in Toronto as well. We have a lot of great musicians in the city, but yeah, there's definitely a shortage of drummers compared to like guitar players, for instance. So yeah, like every pretty much every drummer I know is either in of a bunch of different bands or has been in a bunch of different bands, just because kind of they're in demand. There's a shortage of drummers. So.
Everyone wants to play guitar or bass and or sing and no one's really like, I want to be the fucking drummer. Like, yeah, we need more drummers. Please
Well,
play
I mean,
drums.
drums are expensive. You gotta lug a bunch of shit around, and I think that a lot of people would just rather maybe lug an amp. But I mean, we need drummers, and I think on that note, I will say that a band with a great drummer behind them, you can feel a difference in how they present themselves on record, how tight they are as a band, and especially on stage too. Like if the drummer is very solid and he's locked in, then that the whole band is going to sound better as a result, right? Everyone's going to stay together better and they're just going to have a much better energy on stage, especially. So, yeah, they're very much sought after because they're also fucking important. So,
Yeah, very, very fucking important. I just had this conversation with a buddy last night. You I guess a lot of people don't necessarily think about it, but if you have a mediocre drummer with great musicians, it makes the overall very mediocre. If you've got a
yeah,
great drummer behind like mediocre musicians, it really pulls it together and like elevates the quality of the music.
yeah, I would agree with that. I'm not sure if I would say that like that a mediocre drummer would make the whole band mediocre because maybe it's just the music teacher in me, but I think I'm there you can still look at yeah, you can still look at the other elements of the band and say, okay, there's still a lot of redeeming qualities. I mean, case in point, a couple of days ago, I just saw Metallica, right? So, we all know Lars ain't the best, but for what they were, they still played very tight. So
But Metallica wouldn't be Metallica if they had a different drummer.
that is true. Yeah, you need someone who's going to make everything look extremely hard, even though it's just a beat.
Yeah, fuck. Not sorry, Lars.
Sorry, Lars, we love you. Still,
Yeah, that's so fucking funny. Like that conversation, the Lars conversation happens so much. I mean, there's like he's not the guy to keep time. He doesn't do what a drummer really should do. He plays, he's absolutely Lars where he plays to what like James is playing and it fits, right? So it's
yeah.
like that I don't know.
I think, yeah, I guess for them, that's what they really need at the end of the day. So,
Yeah.
hmm.
So what was your like introduction into like heavy metal and then more extreme stuff?
Well, it started off when I was young, actually. My parents are both metalheads. They both very much, they're both very big into like rock and metal. My dad actually played heavy metal even back in the 80s. Not like a very notable band or anything. I think they just were local for a little bit, but very much sort of like Sabbath worship, but also liking a lot of like, mid-era like 80s Judas Priest, that sort of thing as well. My mom's favorite band was Iron Maiden. So, she loves Bruce Dickinson. And I remember being lullabied to sleep with like Guns N' Roses tapes when I was young too, right? So, um, But when I was growing up, I think my favorite band was AC/DC for a little while, and then I was also huge into Led Zeppelin and Tool, and Tool especially was one of those bands that introduced me more to the dark side of music, especially the Undertow record, because I mean that's very much just a very dark sounding metal record, even though it's a kind of like progressive rock and whatever, fuck genres. Anyways, it's a very dark, murky, and disturbing record, and I remember being I think like 9 or 10 years old and staying up a little bit late watching the music video for Much Loud for Sober. And I remember I had this weird sort of these conflicting emotions because I was creeped out by the video, but I also loved the song. So I was like, I don't know how to feel right now.
Yeah.
But later on I ended up buying the CD at a record store and I very much fell in love with the whole album. It's a great record. It's still one of my favorites. And it started getting me, I think between that, it started getting me further and further into some more that it's definitely shaped my tastes in the years to come. Um, Cam actually started getting more into more of the extreme stuff before I did, actually. He was getting into bands like Lamb of God and eventually Meshuggah. And it took a while, it took a little bit of time for me because I wasn't really used to the extremity of it, but eventually I kind of caved and I started getting into a lot of the bands that we were listening to. Lamb of God and Meshuggah became Suffocation and Morbid Angel. And then I also started exploring some of bands that I wanted to find my own bands too. So I was getting into like the Black Dahlia Murder. I was huge into Cataclysm for a while, not so much anymore. But then I started getting really into black metal. So I started exploring like Emperor and Dark Throne. And a big influence for when I was writing melodic riffs in the beginning was the Norwegian band Tåke. So yeah, I started exploring a lot aside of that, and Oliver, and then it all just kind of it all just snowballed from there, really.
Yeah. I think once you cross that like extreme threshold, it's like the fucking world opens up to all this music and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know like you could have sounds like this. What is
Yeah,
this going on, you know?
very much. And I think that for people that are on like the outside of it, and I know like some of my students can be like this as well. I'm a guitar teacher, by the way. I'm a local guitar teacher. So, but yeah, I think a lot of people on the outside would look at this and, they hear like the screaming vocals, they have a hard time getting past that. But I think once you do get past that extreme presentation that the music has, it's such a dynamic genre. I mean, there's bands that just sound completely different, and it's such a unique art form that has gone in so many different directions that you can have 20 different bands that all sound completely unique and different. I mean, Negura Bunget doesn't sound like Blood Nord, and Blood Nord doesn't sound like Wolves in the Throne Room, and Wolves in the Throne Room doesn't sound like Agalok. Agalok doesn't sound like Neurosis, and it spirals from all of that, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And the really cool thing is like seeing like some of these black metal bands really bring in other elements like Panopticon bringing in those bluegrass elements. So you've
yeah.
got blackgrass, like what the fuck?
Yeah, blackgrass. I like that. Yeah. Yeah, and that's another case in point. I mean, who would have thought in a million years that you would start combining black metal with North American folk and bluegrass, right? I mean, I just know there's some people that I know that are very much on the outside where it's just they would not be able to wrap their head around it at first. Not because they wouldn't want to try. It's just like, huh? This is a thing,
Yeah.
right? So, and it just, in a way, it still makes the metal genre very underrated, I think, which I think it kind of needs to stay a little bit underground. Like, not to say that, not in like a true elitist sense, right? I mean, I'm all for bands getting the recognition they deserve, and Emperor headlines festivals all the time, and I think that's awesome. But it's not a mainstream genre still. It's not like it's not like pop or rap or anything like that. And I think it's where it needs to be in that
Yeah.
sense.
Well, I think the benefit to it staying kind of where it's at is the continuous evolution. It goes from like once it hits a certain like threshold of popularity, instead of it evolving or being like productive in a sense, people start going, "Oh, I just want to sound like that," and they start really going after that. I mean, look at the new American like thrash, right? With like Lamb of God. How many Lamb of God bands have really come out of the woodwork? And I'm not shitting on Lamb of God at all. I fucking love them. I think they're great dudes, and they they've got a
Yeah,
formula for writing, and they make great music. But again, they fucking hit that threshold, and everyone's like, "Ooh, I want to be that."
yeah. Well, I think in that sense, a band like that is also paving the way for other bands to like they are kind of coming out of the woodwork, as you say, right? They're I guess as they continue to get that big, they're also influencing a lot of people to get into playing music, and they might continue just playing music like Lamb of God, or if their interests change over time, then those same musicians still explore those other right. So me and Cam, like we grew up on Lamb of God. We still have fond memories listening to like Ashes of the Wake and As the Palaces Burn. And my favorite album by them is still New American Gospel. I love that. I'd love to hear songs like Terror and Hubris and The House of Frank Pollard live. It's a fucking nasty ass song. I love that one. But yeah, and it's not like I'm not huge on them nowadays, but like I still have that love for the early material there. And it's still then I guess snowballed. It we kind of branched out and getting into other stuff, and like we were talking about already, we realized just how expansive this whole genre could be.
Yeah, but so just kind of really looking at the album, what a like how do I say this? First, it's fucking fantastic. It's fucking fantastic over there. Um,
Thank you.
because it's not just like pummeling you in the face with blast beats and black metal guitar. It takes you on a fucking journey. And I'm gonna be honest with you, like Eulogy Fields, I think is my fucking favorite, dude. Like it is the
I
longest
love
song
that
on the
one.
album, but it like right at the 12-minute mark, it fucking changes, and you're like, whoa, where are we
Oh yeah.
going?
Yeah, I know exactly. I know the part you're talking about. It's that whole part that follows after that like 12-minute mark there. It's probably one of my favorite things we've ever done still. It's amazing. Fun fact about fun fact about that sort of composition there, because like the beginning chunks, the riffs came together gradually and we found ways to piece them together, and that long clean section um came together as I was experimenting with some really unique chord voicings, and eventually I was able to put the chord progressions together and it just sounded absolutely lovely. But the ending was a bit interesting because, the ending's actually in a different tuning compared to the rest of the song, right? So, I mean, one guitar's on a seven-string tune to drop A. The six-string guitar is just in standard, but then partway through it down tunes to drop D. So around that part where it goes boom down, the band's holding on the chord, then you're boom. So we actually dropped the tuning in the song. And we did that because that ending section I wrote separately. It was just like a spur of the moment thing. I actually played the chords that you hear initially. I played them by accident. I was trying to play one chord, but then I messed up the fingering, so I did the next one. I was like, wait, that sounded amazing. And then we kind of, I remember I was sitting beside Cam's drum kit when we came up with that, and um, yeah, so I found the chords and we kind of just started jamming that for probably for about 12 minutes because it just sounded so freaking good. So, and with what the Eulogy Fields was about thematically and just how the rest of the song was going, I was a very stubborn prick about it. I was just like, this needs to be in that song. I don't care if it's another tune. I need to find a fucking way to make it work. And the challenge then became, how do I downtune in the middle of a riff here? And I think we did it. I think we did it very well. So, but yeah, that's it was very much that was a very much a spur of the moment part, but it's still one of my favorite things we've written. It did get enhanced over time because before for a long time it was just chords, right? And chords in the picking pattern. It was all sounding really good. And for a long time we wanted to put a solo. I wanted to put a solo in this song, but I couldn't. There was a riff that I had in there that we eventually took out just because I couldn't really make the solo work over it. I wasn't coming up with any good ideas. And then we just kind of took the parts that were on either side of it, smacked them together, worked out perfectly, right? And I thought, what if I put a solo over this ending section? And then I started thinking of, well, so are you familiar with the Blood Off Nord album, Dialogue with the Stars, Memory of
I
Atusa
am not.
2?
Nope.
Okay. So for you and for anyone else listening, that is an essential life-changing album. That's a must listen. It's fucking immaculate, you know? It's one of my favorite black metal albums of all time. But it has a lot of these soaring guitar leads over top that kind of just sound like you're floating through the sky. And I was like, what if I did something like that? And then that's when the whole idea train started rolling again with that. And I would say that was probably something that came to fruition like that, maybe like 6 months or almost a year before we started recording. So it was very late in the game at this point because these songs are already very old. But you know, as long as this album took some time, sometimes that's an instance where I'm glad that we waited to record because if we recorded earlier, then that idea might not have come out the way that it did. And then we'd think, oh shit, what if we did this? And then, well, it's too late because the album's fucking out already. So,
You know, like I think in that instance, yes, right? Sometimes it hold it, you holding off on recording the way that you did, it opened something up, but that idea would have came like you guys are sound checking and then boom, and you're like, oh fuck, now we got to re-record the song with this new fucking piece in it and like get that out as a new
yeah.
single or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. At that point, we would probably just, if that happened, we would just make it like a live rendition or something. Just because I don't think we're really into doing like, well, actually, it's not fully true. We did do Garden of Embers a little earlier, a couple of years ago, but that was more of like a promo single. It wasn't like this isn't. That was just sort of like a, hey, here's a bit of a teaser for you guys while you wait for the new album, right?
Yeah.
So, but you know, what we want these recordings of these songs to be like the final presentation of them. Like, this is the vision that we have for these songs. We want this to be what the song is, right? So, you know,
Yeah.
I know some other bands have done like, you know, oh, we're gonna do a 2025 re-recording of a 2000s song, and it's like it's hard to capture the same energy you had back then, you know? So,
But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's very different. And it's cool that you came up with that piece and we're like, okay, I have to put this in there because that is like, to me, that's where songs come from. They don't really come from a lot of like, okay, I have to put, the C before the A and it's got to be blah blah blah. You have to feel it, because it's fucking part of you that you're really getting out to the world and saying, here it is.
yeah, 100%, exactly, you know? So, um yeah, sometimes you gotta be, it's like there's times I've had to be very formulaic because then I get maybe stuck with a certain part of the song and I know I need it to go somewhere else, but it's like, well, how do I get out of this particular space here, right? How do I get out of there? And then I kind of have to put on my music theory hat and kind of work out some things almost formulaically. But then there's times where you get that burst of inspiration and that you can't ignore that. So
Right. Yeah, and
yeah.
that's always really fucking cool. So, like when you guys start writing this, and I obviously it was a process because your songs are not 5 or 7 minute songs at all,
No.
like the last two songs are like 18 and a half and 17 and a half minutes or thereabouts, which is like, fuck, that's an album in itself, just those two songs.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's that like? What's that writing process like for you guys?
Well, you know, it's funny. I joke about this with friends of mine all the time. You know, it's like we got a half-hour set, but it's two songs, sick. So yeah, it's always a bit of a joke with us. Well, I'll start off by saying that we didn't plan for it to be like that, right? I mean, when I first started writing music for what would eventually become Flock, we were working on I remember I was working on a song at the time called Monolith that we've ditched because it's not good. But I had the riffs and the way that I was writing it together was like, well, okay, so these riffs, they sound good together. It's working well, but it's not, the song doesn't feel done yet. It feels like if we just ended the song here, it would just end abruptly and it just feel like you went nowhere, right? We needed to go somewhere. We needed to actually come to a conclusion, right? So I started adding more things to it, and then okay, so what is this like? So I'm gonna tie these riffs together this way, and so on and so forth, throwing more shit there until it's like okay, now when I listen from the beginning and then I hear it at the end, it sounds like a it sounds like a song, right? It sounds like the song started and it actually did come to a conclusive end, right? So, and of course, this was a very early song, and we've ditched all of that at this point. At the time, I was satisfied. I was like, hey, this sounds like a song, right? This sounds like something that we could play. And I remember doing a demo recording at home back when me and Cam were still living together with our folks. And when I was done the little demo recording, Cam was at the computer. He's like, Ryan, this is like 13 minutes. And I'm like, oh, so we're one of those bands. So, because I thought it was going to be like seven, right? Because it's the type of thing it flew by when I listened to it and when I played it, because you're just in that zone the whole time. So, um, yeah, and then oddly enough, so that song, like the only riff that we kept, it's not even really the same anymore, but it ended up being the beginning, the very first riff of To Drown in Obsidian Tides on the closing record, right? The closing of the record. So, but at this point it doesn't even sound anything. It sounds so far removed from that initial idea. It's like not even the same riff anymore. But yeah, that's sort of where it all comes from. Like we want the songs to we want to make sure the songs feel conclusive. We want to make sure that they have a nice climactic point in there too, and that when they come to an end, they come to a conclusive ending, right? So we wanted to, and I also at the time I was also really wanting to give every song like the ending song treatment. Like you know when you listen to a record and you hear like a bunch of songs that are all good, but then that last song you can tell the band clearly put a lot of effort into making this big epic closer. And I
Yep.
was thinking to myself, well, why not fucking make every song like that? Why are you half-assing the rest of this record, you schmucks? And, why don't you just do that with all of it, right? So that's what I wanted to do too. So, yeah, every song, I wanted to make sure that it can kind of feel like the end of an album in a way. And yeah,
Well,
it kind of just it just turned out that way, honestly.
that's cool, but like every song could be an album to itself, you know, like yeah, this one's 14 minutes. This is our fucking EP. This one's 18 minutes. This is like EP number 3. Like you put all these EPs together. Like, when I first looked at like Incendiary, I was like, okay, um 4 songs, like 20-25 minutes, not a big deal. I put it on and I'm like, fuck, it's been 25 minutes and I'm into song 2. What the fuck is going on here? And I had to look at the times and go, oh, I need to allow myself more time to listen to this because holy shit.
Yeah, that's we want it to be one of those instances where people forget how much time has gone by, right? So I think one of the
Yeah.
biggest compliments we could get is that like, man, these songs don't feel as long as they are, right? Because I think if you can if you can suck someone in so much to what you're doing as an artist that time just becomes a non-factor to them. They're just completely entranced, then at that point I think you've succeeded because that you have their attention the whole way through. They're not trying to think about, man, how much more do I have, right? So, and for that, we're trying to really make sure the songs flow smoothly. There's no jarring transitions, right? We want to make everything to feel like it carries you the entire time. It's not but not like we're trying, that's one thing that I would want to distinct. Like we don't want to be a band where we just smack a whole bunch of random shit together for the sake of it. We want there to make sure that there's a common thread, that there's common themes that happen throughout the song, so that there's a sense of familiarity still for the listener. And at the same time, we want the transitions between all those parts to be very smooth, very liquid. You don't even realize that they're happening, right? So we've had jam sessions where we've spent, hours just working out transitions, right? As odd as that sounds, I mean, those transitions, they're a big deal at the end of the day, right?
So I don't think that's odd at all. Like some of my favorite things in songs are the way they transition, whether you're going from one song to the next or from the bridge to the chorus or whatever that is, right? To see how bands actually make those transitions, it kind of tells you like how much thought they put into the song. Because if they don't think about that transition and you have that like jarring fucking left turn, you're like, well, what the fuck happened there?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right. And I think that's you can tell a band's really trying to think of that whole song, whether it's 7 minutes or whether it's 17 minutes. They're thinking of it as that. They're thinking of the whole thing as a piece, a composition, rather than we're gonna have this part that's thrash metal for a little bit, and then we're just gonna hang on to this chord as an obvious break, and then go into this black metal section, and then hang on to this chord. Now it's the next section song, part one, part two, part three. I hate that fucking shit, right? It feels lazy as shit, right?
Oh,
Tie
well,
shit
and
together better, guys.
I think some bands that's just what they do, right? And I'm not going to
Yeah,
knock that, but something like what you guys do is not that, right? Like
right.
that
Yeah.
band is a 3 to 5 minute song band, and your songs are not. They're much more in line with what I think the majority of people look at, like what a composition is. It's more in the fucking I can't even think of the word right now because my brain is fried. But you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
more
yeah.
like an orchestral like composition versus like
Yes.
a 3 or 5 minute like radio song.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. We do want to I do very much want to take like an orchestral approach to the songs on this record. Because I mean, you think of like that's that I guess that's another thing that I would always think about as well. It's not the first time that artists have made long songs. I mean, Richard Wagner, this song Tristan and Isolde, I butchered the pronunciation, but that's like a 4 hour piece,
Yeah,
right? You know,
yeah.
and there's a lot you can say about Wagner as a person, but I mean, he was still an amazing composer, right? So, um, yeah, so it's not like a foreign thing for bands to write long songs. I think this as long as you pay attention to the composition, you have an idea of where this is going, and you make sure that there actually is like a climactic point that grips people, and it's not just 14 minutes that go absolutely nowhere, and you forget what the beginning of the song sounded like by the time you heard the end of it,
Right.
right?
Right.
So you
No,
need to
and
still have
that's
common threads. You still need to have common themes, right? So it might not be verse, chorus, but it'll still be, oh, I remember this riff from earlier in the song, right? And they found a way to bring it back in a way that actually flowed very smooth. And now the whole song's coming, it's being tied together that way. So
well, and you don't,
especially when
you
you have
know,
long compositions like this, it's incredibly important to keep that stuff in mind.
absolutely. You know, like this type of song is not a song you're like, okay, this has got to be we're writing this for the radio. Like
No.
no, like someone that they have to listen, they have to be introduced, and and typically when they are in this aspect, they go, "Holy fuck, dude, this is cool!" Like, thanks,
Yeah.
John or Shelly or whoever the fuck introduced me to this. Like, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah, I think it's the type of thing that it requires patience, right? It requires patience because you got to make sure you got to have first you have to find the time to sit down to listen to all of it. We have to make sure that you're going into it while not expecting it to just be all right. Now we're just here's the big hook right away. It's not going to be like
Yeah,
that kind of song, right? It's a song that requires your patience, your attention, like a good film, right? Like any great movie would, right? I mean, The Godfather's 3 hours, but how many people laud it as a masterpiece? And it is a masterpiece. It's incredible, right? So it's something that requires patience, but if you're going to require patience from someone to observe your art that way, you should make sure that they're very well rewarded, that their patience is rewarded at the end.
that's exactly it, right? Like if you're gonna write a piece, it has to be interesting and not, it just has to keep you like engaged the entire time. And I think you guys do a really good job at that. Like there's not a point at any point on the album where I was like, okay, this is kind of boring. Maybe I'll skip to the next song. And I was always like, so I've listened to it through twice, and both times I'm like, man, this fucking part, is super cool. And then you go into the next part, and I'm like, holy fuck, this is fucking awesome, right? And it's through the entire album. So I really hope that there are a lot of people out there that listen to it and absolutely get on board because it's not the traditional 3 minute radio friendly song. It's an actual like piece of art.
Thank you very much, and I very much hope so. I hope so as well. I mean, I think what has me hopeful, I mean, I think of like how Agalloch got started and how their albums came out, and I mean, spoiler alert, they're my favorite band of all time. So I mean, of course I'm going to talk about Agalloch at least once in every interview that I have. But they were very much not doing, they weren't trying to be anything specific. They were taking their whole host of influences and writing songs that had a little bit of everything, but they weren't trying to be anything specific other than a band that sounded non-traditional, right? And to quote John in one of the interviews I've seen him there. And their albums also require patience because they're also long compositions that have a lot of different parts there too, especially if you look at an album like The Mantle, where it's just every song is completely different and you have no it took me a few listens just to wrap my head around it, but I think it's the type of thing that, and it very much like their music, our music I think is looking for a specific audience that are into that sort of thing, are into something that's a little bit more non-traditional that way. And well, I wanted to find those ears, and I want to find the ears of people that are going to give it that attention and then share it to other people that will also have that same kind of mindset. I think that's the kind of listeners that we're geared towards, really.
Agre- I absolutely
Yeah.
agree with that. I think that well, and that's kind of the beautiful thing about like more underground music is all of that is more like grassroots, you know, someone like I can't tell you how many texts I got today on like, hey dude, have you fucking checked out this band? I got like 20 yesterday. Dude, check out this band. They're out of, Salt Lake City and these guys are out of Chicago and check these guys out. They're out of fucking Norway and I'm just like, all right, like this is these are the people I want to be around, like,
Yeah.
dude, check these fucking check this shit out. And I do the same thing. Hey, check this out. I think you'll really like this. Hey, check this out. Because
Oh
that's
yeah.
in my mind, it's a much better world doing that than like, oh, dude, I heard this song on the radio that was really fucking cool. Like for the 2.5 minutes they played it.
Yeah. Yeah, I can agree on that. I mean, I'm not like I don't think I'm not really I of course it'd be cool if our music was played on a station like Liquid Metal or something like that, but I don't really see it happening anytime soon unless they wanted to take, Pierce Flesh Catharsis and since it's the shortest one on the album. But yeah, I very much agree with you on that. I think that's a better way of getting it into the ears of the right kind of people that are in the right mindset for what you're doing there. Because sometimes I know there's some bands in Toronto that it's like some bands even that we're friends with that are excellent, excellent fucking bands. I think just in some ways they need to find the exact audience that would appreciate what they do. Because sometimes, it's you might find some listeners that they're not really into it, but it doesn't mean what you're doing is bad. It's just you're not finding the right crowd, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's,
So
someone, I read an article probably 30 years ago and I honest to God, I couldn't tell you who the interview was with, but it in there was one of the one of the quotes was, "It doesn't matter what kind of music you make, there is an audience for it. Doesn't matter how good or
yes.
bad, like this person thinks you are, there's an audience for it." And I've heard some of the what I would consider some of the worst music in the fucking world. And I know
Yeah.
people love it. I'm just like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah. Well, I personally think that every kind of music can be amazing if it's done authentically at the end of the day. So, it doesn't really matter whether it's metal or blues or even hip hop. I mean, there's like a little bit of like hip hop that like me and Cam do like, right? It's not at the top of my rotation, but I would still listen and be like, this is honest, this is authentic. And it says something that I personally find is worth saying. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I think just as long as the music that you're playing is authentic, that's what matters at the end of the day. It's something that's honest and you're not trying to force yourself to be something that you're not, essentially, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what people connect with, right? Is the authenticity. They don't
Mhm.
typically connect with the bullshit facade that people like to put on,
Exactly, exactly.
right? The fuck on. Okay, Ryan, holy shit. I feel like we've talked about everything in such a short amount of time,
We've had a good conversation, man.
for sure.
Hmm.
So dude, I greatly, greatly appreciate your time. I do have to, I've got an appointment I got to get to that my alarm just went off for, and I'm like, oh shit, I forgot about that. Uh,
Oh
uh,
no.
yeah,
Yeah,
such is life, but I greatly fucking appreciate it. I have personally already pre-ordered the album. I'm really,
awesome.
really looking forward to seeing it arrive at my house, and I can't wait to hear more of what you guys have coming out.
Thank you very much. I'm really glad that you dig it so much, and this was fun as well. There is more on the way. We are already like writing for a third album, and it's shaping up to be quite good. So, at least I personally think so.
I hope so.
Of course, I'm biased. It's my own stuff.
20
More,
minutes.
funny enough, we actually are trying to shorten the songs this time around, so that like take the same journey, but see if we can condense it more now. So, without shorten it, but not sell ourselves out, that sort of thing. And well, it's already shaping up to be quite good. So, hopefully, it won't take another 7 years to put out.
Hell yeah. Let's hope not. All right,
Yeah.
Ryan, go have yourself a great day, dude. I appreciate your time.
Thanks very much for having me, Tom. This was great.
Absolutely. See ya.
See ya.